I stood frozen in the middle of my kitchen, staring at my phone screen in disbelief. $78,000 gone. Just vanished overnight from my house, down payment savings account. 6 years of overtime shifts, packed lunches, and saying no to vacations had disappeared in an instant. My hands trembled as I called the bank, praying this was some horrible mistake. The representative's voice was sympathetic but matter-of-fact. "Yes, miss. Regina Carter, your sister Amanda, was added as an authorized user by your parents last week." I hung up and grabbed my car keys, racing across town to my parents' house. As I screeched into their driveway, Amanda pulled up beside me in a gleaming new luxury car, grinning proudly. When I confronted them all, my parents' response shattered my world. "You can always save again, Regina. Amanda needs this more than you do right now." The kitchen timer buzzed insistently as I pulled the lasagna from the oven, my tiny apartment filling with the rich aroma of tomato and herbs. My phone dinged with a text from my real estate agent, Lucy. "Good news, sellers reviewing offers tomorrow. Feel good about our chances." I smiled, setting the hot dish on a pot holder. After 6 long years of scrimping and saving, I was finally days away from possibly owning my own home. A modest 2-bedroom craftsman with a small yard and a front porch, perfect for morning coffee. Nothing fancy, but in the competitive Seattle suburb housing market, finding anything under $500,000 was a miracle. At 31, I'd worked my way up to hospital administration director, but the path hadn't been easy. I'd started in medical billing right out of college, working 60-hour weeks while sharing an apartment with 3 roommates. When everyone else my age seemed to be enjoying brunches and shopping trips, I was working extra shifts and watching my savings account grow dollar by painful dollar. My current studio apartment cost $1,400 a month for 400 square feet. Highway robbery, but that was Seattle for you. The mortgage on the Craftsman would actually be less, which still blew my mind. $78,000 had taken everything I had to save, but it would be enough for a 20% down payment plus closing costs. I glanced at the clock and hurried to get ready. Sunday dinner at my parents' house was a sacred tradition, and tonight I was finally going to share my exciting news. I'd kept my house hunting mostly to myself, not wanting to jinx anything. My grandfather Jackson would be there too. He'd be so proud. He was the one who had taught me about saving and financial responsibility when I was just a kid. "Always pay yourself first, Regina," he'd say, helping me set up my first savings account at 12 years old. "Nobody else is going to build your future for you." When I graduated college, Grandpa Jackson had given me $5,000, the seed money that started my house fund. "I know you'll use it wisely," he'd said, eyes twinkling. Unlike my sister Amanda, who had received the same gift and spent it on a 3-week trip to Europe, at 26, Amanda still lived a chaotic life. She bounced between apartments and jobs every few months, always chasing the next exciting opportunity that would somehow never work out. My parents, Walter and Diane Carter, had always had a soft spot for her, their baby girl with the big dreams and bigger problems. Growing up, the family dynamic had been clear. Amanda was delicate, creative, needed protection and special attention. I was the strong one, the responsible one. "Be patient with your sister," Mom would say. "She's sensitive." Or, "Regina can handle it. She's so mature for her age." I didn't resent being the reliable one. I took pride in it. But sometimes I wondered what it would be like to be the one who got rescued, instead of always being expected to understand. I threw on a blue sweater that brought out my eyes, grabbed the lasagna, and headed out to my sensible 8-year-old sedan. The engine made that worrying rattle again, but I ignored it. Soon I'd have a house. The car would have to wait. 20 minutes later, I pulled into my parents' driveway in the same middle-class neighborhood where I'd grown up. Their house wasn't fancy, but it was the place where all my childhood memories lived. The magnolia tree I'd climbed as a kid still stood in the front yard, now taller than the roofline. "There's my Reggie," my grandfather called as I walked through the front door using his special nickname for me. At 87, Grandpa Jackson still stood tall, though his once black hair had long since turned silver. "Hi, Grandpa," I said, giving him a tight hug and breathing in his familiar scent of peppermint and aftershave. My parents greeted me next, my mother taking the lasagna with a distracted smile. "Oh good, you brought dinner." Amanda texted, "She has some big news tonight." Of course, Amanda's news would take center stage, but for once I didn't mind. I had my own announcement, and the thought of finally sharing my house plans made me almost giddy. "Where is Hurricane Amanda anyway?" I asked, using our family nickname for my perpetually late sister. "She should be here any minute," Dad said, checking his watch. He and Mom exchanged a strange look that I couldn't quite interpret. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, fine," Mom said quickly. "Walter, why don't you pour Regina some wine?" Something felt off, but before I could probe further, the front door burst open, and Amanda swept in her blonde hair, freshly highlighted, wearing designer jeans, and a top I recognized from a boutique window display I'd admired, but would never spend $300 on. "Sorry I'm late," she announced, though she didn't look sorry at all. In fact, she was practically glowing with excitement. "But I have the most amazing news." Mom rushed over to hug her. "We can't wait to hear it, sweetheart." I watched as my parents fussed over Amanda, noticing the strange nervous energy between them. Dad kept glancing at me then, away quickly. Mom's smile seemed plastered on. "Let's eat first," Grandpa Jackson suggested, squeezing my shoulder gently. Regina brought lasagna. Over dinner, I tried to gauge the right moment to share my news about the house. Amanda dominated the conversation as usual, talking about a party she'd attended with, basically celebrities, though the names she dropped were minor social media personalities I barely recognized. So Amanda finally said, setting down her fork with a dramatic flourish, "Is everyone ready for my big news?" My parents nodded eagerly while Grandpa Jackson caught my eye with a small wink of solidarity. "I got a new job," Amanda announced. "Sales director for Lux Life Cosmetics, and to celebrate." She paused for dramatic effect. "I bought my dream car." "That's wonderful, honey," Mom gushed. "A new job. Congratulations," I said sincerely, genuinely happy for my sister. Maybe this job would stick. "Did you get approved for financing? That's great." Amanda laughed, twirling her wine glass. "No financing needed. Paid cash, baby." I frowned slightly. Amanda had never been good with money. The last I knew, she had been working as a part-time yoga instructor and had complained about not making rent just 2 months ago. "Cash. That's impressive," I said carefully. "Did you get a signing bonus or something?" Amanda exchanged another look with my parents, who both suddenly became very interested in their lasagna. My phone dinged with a banking alert. I normally wouldn't check during family dinner, but something about the tension in the room made me pull out my phone. Transaction alert: withdrawal. $78,000,000. My stomach dropped. I quickly opened my banking app, hands shaking to see my house down payment savings account had been completely emptied, except for $12.37. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I looked up to see 3 guilty expressions and 1 confused one, Grandpa's. "Now, Regina," my father began in his lawyer voice, the one he used when preparing to justify something unreasonable. "There's no need to overreact." "Overreact? My entire house savings is gone." I turned to Amanda. "What did you do?" Amanda at least had the decency to look slightly ashamed. "I needed a car for my new job. It's a sales position, appearance matters. And Mom and Dad said it would be okay." I turned to my parents in disbelief. "You gave her access to my account, to the money I've been saving for 6 years." "We're all family," Mom said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "We added her as an authorized user. We didn't think you'd mind helping your sister get on her feet. This job is a real opportunity for her. With $78,000, I could have minded a lot less if you'd asked for $5,000. That was my house down payment. I was making an offer this week." My voice rose with each word. "Houses will always be there," my father said dismissively. "Your sister needed a reliable vehicle immediately for this job opportunity." "What kind of car costs $78,000? I demanded. "It's a BMW M4, Amanda admitted. "But it's an investment in my career." I felt like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. "A BMW for a sales job selling makeup. Lux Life is a premium brand," Amanda sniffed. "And you've always been good at saving. You can just start over. You have a stable job." Start over. 6 years of saving, Amanda. 6 years of no vacations, no shopping, no eating out. "Regina," my mother's voice turned stern. "Your sister has struggled to find her path. You've always had it easy, knowing exactly what you wanted and how to get it. Amanda needs this chance more than you need a house right now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had had it easy because I worked 60-hour weeks and sacrificed, because I made responsible choices. "Did you know about this?" I asked my grandfather, the only person who looked as shocked as I felt. He shook his head slowly. "Absolutely not." My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "While we're being honest, Regina, this isn't the first time we've had to step in to help Amanda financially." "What do you mean?" I asked, dread filling my chest. Your grandmother's inheritance, he said. The $10,000 you each received when you turned 21. We redirected yours to help with Amanda's college tuition after she lost her scholarship. I stared at them, speechless. You stole my inheritance too. What else have you taken from me without telling me? We didn't steal anything, my mother said, offended. We're your parents. We made a decision about what was best for the family as a whole. Amanda needed it more. I looked around the table at my family, my parents avoiding my gaze, Amanda looking put upon as if I was ruining her big moment, and my grandfather's face darkening with anger on my behalf. In that moment, I realized a fundamental truth that broke my heart to my parents. I wasn't a person with my own dreams and needs. I was just a resource to be tapped whenever Amanda required bailout. I have to go, I said, standing up so abruptly that my chair tipped backward. I can't be here right now. As I grabbed my purse and keys, I heard Amanda call after me. Don't be so dramatic, Regina. It's just money. Just money. Just my future. Just my dreams. Just 6 years of my life. I got into my car, tears blurring my vision, and drove away from the house that had never treated both daughters the same. I couldn't face going back to my apartment. The thought of sitting alone in those 400 square feet, surrounded by the printouts of houses I'd been researching and the vision board I'd made of my dream home was unbearable. Instead, I drove to a hotel near my workplace and checked in for the night, ignoring 6 calls from my mother and 3 from my father. The next morning, I called Lucy, my real estate agent, from the hotel room. Regina, I was just about to call you, Lucy said cheerfully. The sellers loved your letter about wanting to restore the original features of the house. They're seriously considering your offer, even though there's another one that came in. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Lucy, I have to withdraw my offer. What? Why is everything okay? No, I said, my voice cracking. There was an issue with my down payment. The money isn't available anymore. Oh, Regina, I'm so sorry, Lucy said, genuine disappointment in her voice. That little craftsman was perfect for you. I know, I whispered. Well, I'll let the sellers know. Maybe in a few months when you've sorted things out. Someone else came in with an offer, I interrupted, glutton for punishment. Yes, late yesterday. All cash, actually, which is unusual for a first-time buyer. But your letter really connected with the owners. They have time to decide. All cash. Someone else would be living in my dream home, making coffee on that porch, refinishing those beautiful old hardwood floors I'd fallen in love with. Thanks for everything, Lucy, I said. I'll call you when? If I'm ready to look again. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the hotel, bed numb. 6 years. Gone. I'd have to start completely over. At 9 o'clock, I walked into the local branch of my bank and asked to speak with the manager. A middle-aged woman named Brenda showed me into her office. How can I help you today, Miss Carter? She asked. I need to understand how $78,000 was withdrawn from my account without my knowledge or consent, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Brenda typed on her computer. Let me look into this for you. After a moment, her expression turned sympathetic. I see the withdrawal was made by Amanda Carter, who is listed as an authorized user on the account. The authorization was added last Tuesday. I never authorized that, I said. It appears the authorization was processed by Walter and Diane Carter, who are co-signers on the account. I closed my eyes briefly. My parents. From when I opened the account as a teenager. Yes. According to our records, they've maintained co-signer status. Most people remove their parents when they turn 25, but since you never did, another oversight that had cost me everything. I'd trusted them. It had never occurred to me that I needed protection from my own family. Is there anything I can do? Can I dispute the transaction? Brenda's expression told me everything. Since the withdrawal was made by an authorized user with approval from account co-signers, there's legally nothing to dispute. I'm very sorry. I understand, I said, though I didn't. Not really. If it helps, there's been some unusual activity on your parents' accounts recently as well, Brenda said, then caught herself. I shouldn't have said that. Bank privacy policy. I looked up sharply. My parents' accounts. What kind of unusual activity? I really can't discuss another customer's accounts, Brenda said apologetically. But I would suggest keeping a close eye on your credit report, just as good practice. I left the bank with more questions than answers. Sitting in my car, I pulled out my phone and downloaded a credit monitoring app. If Brenda was suggesting I check my credit, there might be more to this situation than I realized. The app took a few minutes to compile my report. When it finally loaded, I gasped. There were 4 credit cards I'd never applied for, all maxed out with a combined balance of $43,000. All opened within the last year, all under my name. My hands shook as I called the fraud department for the first credit card company. Can you tell me when and how this account was opened? I asked after verifying my identity. The account was opened online 11 months ago, the representative told me. The physical card was mailed to an address in Seattle. What address? I asked, though I already knew. She read off my parents' address. By the end of the day, I'd confirmed the same pattern with all 4 fraudulent cards. All had been opened online using my social security number and personal details. All had been sent to my parents' house. All were in default, destroying my once excellent credit score. I drove to my parents' house, my entire body buzzing with a strange detached anger. Only Amanda's car was in the driveway, the new BMW. She answered the door in yoga pants and a tank top, looking annoyed at the interruption. "Oh, it's you," she said. "Mom and Dad aren't home." "Good, because I want to talk to you." I pushed past her into the house. "Why are there 4 credit cards in my name that I never applied for? Maxed out credit cards." Amanda's expression flickered between guilt and defiance before settling on the latter. "Look, my credit was already shot from some mistakes in college. Mom and Dad suggested using yours since you weren't using it for anything. Wasn't using it, I was about to buy a house. A house that now I can't even qualify for a mortgage on because my credit score has tanked." Amanda flopped down on the couch. "Don't be so uptight. It's not like identity theft from family is the same as real identity theft. It's exactly the same. It's fraud. It's a crime." "God, you're so dramatic. This is why Mom and Dad worry about you, you know. All work, no fun, and you blow everything out of proportion." I stared at my sister, truly seeing her for the first time. There wasn't a hint of remorse in her expression. Not even acknowledgement that what she'd done had hurt me. "Why would you do this to me?" I asked, my anger giving way to genuine bewilderment. "What did I ever do to you to deserve this?" Amanda rolled her eyes. "Not everything is about you, Regina. I needed help, and you have perfect credit. It's not a big deal. You'll figure it out. You always do." The front door opened, and my parents walked in, stopping short when they saw me. "Regina," my mother said, her tone cautious. "We tried calling you. We've been worried." "Worried?" I laughed humorlessly. "That's rich. Were you worried when you let Amanda drain my savings? Or when you suggested she commit identity theft using my social security number?" My parents exchanged looks. "We never suggested identity theft," my father said firmly. "That's a serious accusation." "Really? Because Amanda just told me you did." I turned to my sister. "Want to tell them what you just told me?" Amanda shrugged. "I didn't say they suggested identity theft specifically. They just said maybe I could use your credit since mine was bad. I figured out the details." My mother sat down, suddenly looking tired. "Regina, you have to understand. Amanda has had such a difficult time establishing herself. Your sister needed a fresh start, and I didn't. I was trying to buy a home to build a life." "You're already so established," my father said dismissively. "Stable job, perfect credit." "Had perfect credit," I corrected, "before you all destroyed it." "This attitude isn't helpful," my mother said. "We're family. Families help each other." "Help? You've stolen almost $120,000 from me. My savings, fraudulent credit cards, my grandmother's inheritance. What else have you taken that I don't even know about?" My parents at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. "We've always treated you girls equally," my father insisted. "We've just had to redistribute sometimes based on need." I felt something break inside me, the last remnant of trust I had in the people who were supposed to love and protect me. "I'm filing a police report for identity theft," I said quietly, "and I'm consulting an attorney about the stolen funds." "You would send your own sister to jail," my mother gasped. "Your own family? You didn't think about that when you were stealing from me," I said. "Actions have consequences, even for family." "Regina, be reasonable," my father said, lawyer voice activated again. "Think about how this would look. Think about Amanda's future." "What about my future?" I asked. "Did any of you think about that?" The silence that followed was my answer. "That's what I thought," I said, turning to leave. "Don't contact me. I'll be in touch through my attorney." As I walked to my car, I heard my mother call after me. "You're tearing this family apart, Regina, all over money." It wasn't about the money. It was about trust, about love, about whether I mattered as much as Amanda. And I finally had my answer. The weight of betrayal is a physical thing. It sits on your chest, making it hard to breathe. It drags at your limbs, making simple tasks exhausting. For 3 days after confronting my family, I moved through my life like a sleepwalker, going to work, coming home, staring at walls. I'd filed police reports about the identity theft, initiated fraud claims with the credit card companies, and left messages with 2 attorneys recommended by a colleague. But the emotional toll was harder to address. How do you process the realization that your family sees you as nothing but a resource? On Thursday evening, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer, thinking it might be my parents using someone else's phone, but something made me pick up. "Regina, it's Aunt Susan. My mother's older sister. We weren't particularly close. She lived in Portland and only came up for major holidays, but I'd always liked her straightforward manner." "Aunt Susan. Hi." I couldn't muster more enthusiasm than that. I heard what happened. Her voice was gentle but firm. "Your mother called me trying to get me to talk some sense into you. But after hearing both sides, I think you're the one being sensible." I sank onto my couch, unexpected tears filling my eyes at this small validation. "Thank you for saying that. Listen, there are things you don't know, things I've kept quiet about for too long. Can we meet? I'm driving up to Seattle tomorrow." "Of course," I said, curiosity piercing through my fog of misery. We arranged to meet at a cafe near my apartment the next afternoon. I spent a restless night wondering what family secrets Aunt Susan might reveal. She was waiting when I arrived, a cappuccino already in front of her. At 58, my aunt looked like an older, more serious version of my mother, but there was a steadiness to her that my mother had always lacked. "You look awful," she said as I sat down. Classic Aunt Susan, no sugarcoating. "Thanks," I said with a wan smile. "It's been a rough week." "I can imagine." She pushed a paper bag toward me. "Blueberry scone. You need to eat something." I took a small bite to appease her, finding I actually was hungry. "So what's going on, Aunt Susan? What don't I know?" She sighed heavily. "Your parents are in serious financial trouble, Regina. Have been for years. They've remortgaged their house twice. They're drowning in debt." I frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Dad's law practice does well, and Mom's administrative job at the school has good benefits. They live modestly. Your father's practice has been struggling since he lost the Westfield account 3 years ago, and they don't live as modestly as you think." Susan stirred her coffee. "They have a gambling problem. Both of them." "What? No way." But even as I protested, pieces started clicking into place. The strange hours they sometimes kept, the unexplained cash shortages, the vacations to Las Vegas they took twice a year. It started with weekend trips to the casino about 10 years ago. Just for fun, they said. Then online poker, sports betting. Your father started dipping into his client trust accounts. Nearly got disbarred 5 years ago, but a colleague covered for him. I sat back stunned. "How do you know all this?" "Because they came to me for money. 3 times. I helped once, then realized I was enabling them. The last time was right after your grandmother died. They asked for my share of the inheritance, too." "And Amanda, does she know?" Susan nodded grimly. "Amanda doesn't just know, she facilitates. Gets them set up with new online betting accounts when the old ones cut them off. Drives them to casinos in different counties when they're banned locally. In exchange for what? Exactly what you've seen. Financial support. Bailouts. Your parents see her as an ally and you as, well, a piggy bank to break when needed," I finished bitterly. "I'm sorry, Regina. I should have told you sooner. I just didn't want to come between your mother and you. Family loyalty is complicated." I thought about that as I walked home, pieces of my childhood rearranging themselves in this new light. The times we'd eaten ramen for a week because Mom said she forgot to go to the bank. Dad's unexplained absences. The strange tension that would sometimes grip the house only to vanish when Amanda announced she'd won money in some online contest. I'd been blind, willfully perhaps. It was easier to believe in the family I thought I had than see the dysfunction that was actually there. My phone rang as I reached my apartment building. Grandpa Jackson. "Regina," he said when I answered, his voice strained. "We need to talk." "I know about Mom and Dad's gambling," I said. "Aunt Susan told me." "It's worse than that," he said. "Can I come over?" 20 minutes later, I was letting my grandfather into my apartment. He looked older than he had at Sunday dinner, the lines in his face deeper, his shoulders slightly stooped. "I've been an old fool," he said without preamble. "Grandpa, let me finish. I've been giving your parents money for years. Large sums. They told me it was for your education and later for your down payment fund. I wanted to help, but your grandmother always said kids need to make their own way, so we compromised. I helped, but they told you it was all your own doing. To protect your pride, they said. I sat down hard on my couch. They've been lying to you too. Seems that way. He rubbed his face wearily. When you told me about your house fund being emptied, I made some calls. Checked some things. They've been using my money to cover gambling debts and fund Amanda's lifestyle. God knows how much of it actually went to you. None of it, I said. I never saw a dime beyond the graduation gift you gave me directly. The one Amanda blew on her Europe trip. I know that now. He looked up, his eyes full of regret. And something harder. Resolve. But that's going to change. I've contacted my attorney. We're making arrangements. Arrangements for what? To protect what's left, and to make things right for you. He patted my hand. Don't you worry about your house. We'll figure something out. But I was worried about much more than just the house now. The next morning, my credit monitoring app pinged with new alerts. More hard inquiries on my credit report. Someone trying to open new accounts in my name. I immediately called the fraud department for my credit report agency and placed a freeze on my credit. No new accounts could be opened without my explicit permission and a special PIN. While on the phone, I asked about recent activity. There appear to be several new credit applications in the past 24 hours, the representative confirmed. 2 credit cards, an auto loan, and a personal loan application. All were denied due to the recent fraud alerts you placed. They were getting desperate, trying to secure as much credit as possible before I shut everything down. I called Amanda, fury overwhelming my previous numbness. Stop applying for credit in my name, I shouted when she answered. What? I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice had the same slippery quality it had when she lied about borrowing my clothes as teenagers. The credit freeze is in place. It's over, Amanda. No more stealing from me. Listen, you stuck-up bitch. Her voice suddenly turned vicious. You think you're so perfect with your fancy job and your savings account. You have no idea what Mom and Dad are going through. What I've been through. You owe us. I owe you for what exactly? For always being the favorite, for having everything come so easy to you, you've never had to struggle a day in your life. I laughed in genuine disbelief. Are you serious? I worked through college. I've been working 60-hour weeks for 6 years while you've been finding yourself and letting Mom and Dad clean up your messes. In what universe am I the one who's had it easy? You don't understand anything, she spat. But you will. If you keep pushing this, you'll destroy this family, and it will be your fault. She hung up, leaving me shaking with a toxic mixture of rage and hurt. Later that day, I received an email from my parents. No apology, just a statement that they were deeply disappointed in my vindictive actions and an offer to make things right by giving me $30,000 toward a new house fund, less than half of what they'd taken. I didn't bother responding. That evening, a colleague from the hospital's legal department connected me with Terry Blake, an attorney who specialized in identity theft and financial fraud. The situation with the credit cards is straightforward, Terry told me after hearing my story. Identity theft is a crime even when perpetrated by family members. We can pursue criminal charges, civil damages, or both. And the savings account. Terry's expression was less encouraging. That's trickier. Since your parents were legal co-signers and added your sister as an authorized user, it technically wasn't theft in the eyes of the law. Unethical, absolutely, but possibly not illegal unless we can prove fraudulent intent. What about my grandfather? If they've been taking money from him under false pretenses, that could potentially constitute elder financial abuse depending on the specifics. How old is your grandfather? 87. And is there any cognitive impairment? No, he's sharp as ever. Just trusted his son-in-law. Terry made notes. We would need to document the misrepresentations made to him and the financial trail. If your grandfather is willing to provide statements and financial records, we may have a case there as well. I left Terry's office with a to-do list and a glimmer of hope that some justice might be possible. But I also left with a deeper understanding of just how extensively my family had betrayed me, and how much work it would take to untangle myself from their web of deception. That night I dreamed of the little craftsman house that should have been mine. In the dream, I walked from room to room, but each doorway led to my parents' house instead, with Amanda laughing from every corner. I woke up at 3 a.m, drenched in sweat and more determined than ever to reclaim my life and my future, whatever it took. The first shot in what would become a full-fledged family war was fired not by me, but by Amanda. 3 days after I'd frozen my credit, I woke up to find my social media flooded with notifications. Amanda had posted a tear-filled video to her accounts claiming I was destroying our family over a misunderstanding about money. "My sister has always been materialistic," she said, dabbing artfully at her eyes with a tissue. "But I never thought she'd choose money over family. All because I borrowed some money for a car I need for work. She's threatening legal action against our own parents." The video had hundreds of comments, most from mutual acquaintances taking Amanda's side. "Family is everything," wrote one. "Money comes and goes, but you only get one," sister wrote another. My phone started ringing with calls from extended family members and old friends, all wanting to know why I was being so heartless. Each time I tried to explain the reality, that nearly $120,000 wasn't a small loan, but theft, that the identity fraud had destroyed my credit, that this wasn't an isolated incident, but a pattern. But Amanda's tearful performance was more compelling than my factual explanations. By lunchtime, I'd stopped answering my phone. By dinner, I'd deactivated my social media accounts. "It's a classic Darvo tactic," Terry explained when I called him in a panic. "Deny, attack, reverse, victim and offender. They're making themselves the victims and you the aggressor. Don't engage publicly. It only feeds the drama." But people are believing her. People believe what's convenient and comfortable. Nobody wants to think parents would steal from their child or that a sister would commit identity fraud. It's easier to believe you're overreacting. Easy for him to say. He wasn't watching his reputation being shredded in real time. The next blow came at work. My boss called me into her office, expression grave. "Regina, is everything okay with you? HR received a concerning call from your sister." My stomach dropped. What did Amanda say? "She suggested you might be experiencing mental health issues. Said you've made accusations against your family, that you're paranoid about money. She was worried about your decision-making capacity in your role here." I took a deep breath, fighting to stay calm. Amanda is trying to discredit me because I've caught her and my parents stealing from me. I've filed police reports and am working with an attorney. I can provide documentation if needed. My boss's expression softened. "That won't be necessary. I know your work. I know you. I just wanted to give you a heads up about what's happening. And to let you know that if you need time off or support, it's available." I was grateful for her trust, but shaken by Amanda's escalation. She wasn't just trying to win the court of public opinion, she was actively trying to sabotage my career. That evening, there was a family gathering at my grandparents' house, a birthday dinner for my cousin Tom. I hadn't planned to go, but Grandpa Jackson called and asked me to come. "I'll be making an announcement," he said. "I want you there." I couldn't refuse him, so I steeled myself and went, arriving deliberately late to minimize socializing time. As I walked in, conversations hushed, then resumed with forced brightness. My parents were there, standing by the fireplace, looking older than I remembered. Amanda was holding court in the center of the room, surrounded by cousins. Only Aunt Susan and Grandpa Jackson greeted me warmly. I stuck close to them as we moved to the dining room. Midway through dinner, my grandfather tapped his water glass for attention. "I have something I'd like to share with everyone," he said, his voice wavering slightly. "I recently discovered that money I've been providing to Walter and Diane for Regina's education and house fund has been misappropriated." The table fell silent. "I've been giving substantial sums over the years, over $200,000 in total. I've now learned that very little of it reached Regina as intended." My father stood up abruptly. "This is hardly the time or place for this discussion, Jackson." "I disagree," my grandfather said firmly. "This family has a problem with secrets, and I'm done keeping them. Regina has been blamed for creating family strife, when in fact she is the victim here." My mother's face had gone white. "Dad, please, we can discuss this privately." "No more privacy, no more secrets." Grandpa Jackson looked around the table. "I want everyone to know that I fully support Regina's actions to recover what was taken from her, including legal measures if necessary, and I will be restructuring my financial arrangements to ensure this cannot happen again." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of Amanda's chair scraping back as she stood. "This is bullshit," she said. "Grandpa, they're manipulating you. Regina's always been jealous of me. She's turning you against your own daughter." "Amanda," my Aunt Susan said sharply, "that's enough. No, it's not enough. You're all being played, Amanda pointed at me. She's always been the perfect one, and she can't stand that for once someone thought I deserved something good. My cousin Tom's wife Julie looked confused. Wait, what exactly happened? Before I could speak, my father jumped in. There's been a misunderstanding about some family financial matters. Nothing that needed to be aired at a birthday dinner. He glared at my grandfather. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said quietly but firmly. $78,000 was taken from my house down payment fund without my knowledge. 4 credit cards were opened in my name, maxing out my credit. My grandmother's inheritance was diverted without telling me. Family helps family, my mother said desperately. We've always helped both our girls equally. Regina just doesn't see all the ways we've supported Amanda over the years, because she needed more. Needed or wanted, Aunt Susan asked pointedly. The dinner devolved from there into raised voices and taking sides. Some cousins defended my parents. They must have had their reasons, while others were appalled on my behalf. Aunt Susan and Grandpa Jackson stood firmly with me, which only seemed to enrage my parents further. You're airing dirty laundry, my father accused, pointing at Grandpa Jackson, destroying this family's reputation over money. You destroyed your own reputation when you stole from your daughter and lied to me, my grandfather retorted. By the time dessert would have been served, half the guests had left. I stayed only because I didn't want to leave my grandfather and aunt to face the fallout alone. As we stood in the kitchen helping with dishes, Grandpa Jackson touched my arm. There's more you need to know, he said softly. About the trust. What trust? The one I set up years ago. For both you girls' future security. It contains about $220,000 now. Your parents are the trustees. I felt sick. Let me guess. They've been taking from that too. He nodded grimly. My attorney is looking into it. We're going to fix this, Regina. All of it. The next day, Amanda's social media campaign intensified. Now she claimed I was manipulating our elderly grandfather and tearing the family apart over ancient history. But now there were a few voices defending me too. Family members who had witnessed the dinner confrontation and recognized the truth. But the battle was taking its toll. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Work became my only refuge, but even there I struggled to focus. My boss called me in again. Regina, I think you should take some time off. You're one of our best administrators, but you're running on fumes. I can't afford to take time off, I said. Not now. I'm not asking. I'm telling. 2 weeks paid leave. Doctor's orders. She smiled kindly. She's my doctor anyway. I recognized the wisdom in her words, if not the timing. With reluctance, I agreed to the leave. Maybe some distance would help me think more clearly. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, wondering how my life had imploded so completely. My phone rang. Another unknown number. Regina Carter, a woman's voice asked when I answered. Yes. This is Marcy Williams from Pacific Trust Bank. I'm the fiduciary officer managing your grandfather's trust. He's asked me to contact you directly about some concerns with the trust management. Another piece of the puzzle was about to fall into place, and I braced myself for what I would learn. The offices of Pacific Trust Bank occupied the 15th floor of a downtown Seattle high-rise, with sweeping views of Elliott Bay. I sat across from Marcy Williams, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose as she reviewed my grandfather's trust documents. Your grandfather established this trust 20 years ago, originally for your education and that of your sister. After you both completed college, it was restructured as a future security fund with distributions to be made at ages 30, 40, and 50. And my parents are the trustees. Yes, Jackson named your father as primary trustee and your mother as successor trustee. So they control the money. They have fiduciary responsibility for it, yes, but they are legally obligated to manage it in the beneficiary's best interests, not their own. Marcy pulled out a thick folder. Your grandfather requested an audit of the trust transactions for the past 5 years. The results are concerning. She spread several documents across the desk. There have been numerous distributions from the trust that don't align with its stated purpose. $28,000 for educational expenses last year, despite both beneficiaries being well past college age. $43,000 for medical necessities with no supporting documentation. $35,000 for vocational training for Amanda. I stared at the figures, adding them up in my head. That's over $100,000 in questionable distributions just in the past 5 years. Correct, And there's more. Marcy pointed to another document. The trust owned a 30% interest in your parents' home, purchased with trust funds as an investment. That interest was sold back to your parents 3 years ago for significantly below market value. Let me guess. The money from that sale went to more distributions. Some of it. Some appears to have vanished entirely. Marcy's expression was professionally neutral, but her eyes were sympathetic. Your grandfather has requested we freeze the trust pending further investigation, which we've done. He's also initiated proceedings to remove your parents as trustees. Can he do that? As the trust grantor, yes, though it will take some time and legal work. In the meantime, no further distributions can be made without court approval. I left the meeting with copies of all the documents and a clearer understanding of just how extensive my parents' financial manipulation had been. Not just opportunistic theft from my savings account, but years of systematic exploitation of funds meant for both Amanda and me. My next stop was Terry Blake's law office, where I shared everything I'd learned. This strengthens our case considerably, Terry said after reviewing the trust documents. What your parents have done could constitute breach of fiduciary duty, conversion of assets, and potentially even elder financial abuse, given your grandfather's age and the misrepresentations made to him. So what's our next step? We have several options. We could file a civil suit immediately. We could pursue criminal charges for the identity theft and credit fraud. Or, he hesitated, or what? Or we could take a more strategic approach. Sometimes in cases like this, the threat of legal action and public exposure is more effective than the action itself. Your parents and sister seem very concerned about family reputation and appearances. That's leverage. I considered this. What exactly are you suggesting? Gather more evidence. Document everything. Build a case so strong they can't wiggle out of it. Then offer a settlement that accomplishes your goals without necessarily destroying them. I don't want to destroy them, I said quietly. I just want what's mine. And I want them to stop. Terry nodded. That's a healthy perspective. Many people in your situation want revenge. But that rarely brings satisfaction in the end. As I left Terry's office, I had a clearer sense of direction. This wasn't just about recovering my stolen money anymore. It was about breaking a destructive pattern that had shaped my family dynamics for decades. My phone rang as I reached my car. It was my grandfather. How did the meeting with Marcy go? He asked. Enlightening and disturbing. I thought it might be. Listen, Regina, I've been thinking. Would you be willing to come stay with me for a while? That apartment of yours is too small and I've got this big house all to myself since your grandmother passed. The offer was tempting. My grandfather's house was a spacious 4-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood with a beautiful garden my grandmother had lovingly tended for decades. Are you sure I don't want to impose? Impose? You'd be doing me a favor. This place is too quiet and I could use the company. Plus, it would give us a chance to put our heads together about this whole situation. Okay, I said, feeling relieved at the thought of escaping my tiny apartment filled with reminders of my lost house dream. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he chuckled. I might put you to work fixing that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. 3 days later, I was settled into my grandfather's house. My few belongings moved into the sunny guest room that had once been my mother's childhood bedroom. The irony wasn't lost on me. Grandpa Jackson and I fell into an easy routine. I worked remotely during my leave, using his dining room as an office. In the evenings, we cooked dinner together and strategized. The key is understanding what they really want, my grandfather said one night as we washed dishes side by side. Your parents and Amanda. Money, obviously. Yes, but it's more than that. It's about maintaining appearances, the image of success, the illusion of having it all together. He handed me a plate to dry. Walter has always been obsessed with keeping up with his law school classmates, most of whom went to big firms and made much more than he did with his small practice. Diane wants to be seen as the perfect mother who gave her daughters everything they needed. And Amanda. Amanda wants what she's always wanted. The easy path, the quick fix, the attention that comes from drama rather than achievement. I nodded slowly. So if we want to resolve this effectively, we need to give them a way to save face while still getting justice for you. The next morning I received a text from my mother. Please come home. We need to talk as a family. I showed it to my grandfather. What do you think? I asked. Is it a trap or a genuine olive branch? Probably both, he said wryly. But it might be worth hearing what they have to say. Just don't go alone. Will you come with me? Try to stop me, he said with a determined glint in his eye. Before we could respond to my mother's text, however, my phone rang with a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Regina Carter? A woman's voice asked when I answered. Yes, who's calling? My name is Sarah Montgomery. I'm a real estate agent. I'm calling because I understand you might have an interest in a property on Maple Street. The craftsman with the blue shutters. My heart skipped a beat. The one that was just sold, I was going to make an offer, but my financing fell through. Yes, that's the one. The buyers who purchased it have had a change in circumstances and need to relist. Given the previous interest you expressed, the sellers wanted to give you first opportunity before it goes back on the market. I clutched the phone tighter. Are you serious? It's available again? Yes, but they're looking for a quick close. They wanted to know if your financing issues have been resolved. I hesitated. Not exactly. But my situation has changed. Can I get back to you later today? After hanging up, I turned to my grandfather, hardly daring to hope. My house, it's back on the market. The buyers fell through. His eyes twinkled. Well, isn't that interesting timing? Grandpa, I can't get a mortgage with my credit in shambles, and my down payment is gone. Perhaps there's another way. He sat down at the dining room table. I've been thinking about the best way to help you, and this might be perfect. What if we use part of your trust funds, the ones that should have been protected for you all along, to purchase the house outright, no mortgage needed? But the trust is frozen and my parents are still the trustees. For now, but Marcy is expediting the petition to remove them given the evidence of mismanagement. And the court can approve specific distributions in the meantime if they're clearly in the beneficiary's interest. I shook my head overwhelmed. That's too much, Grandpa. You've already done so much. It's not too much. It's what should have been yours all along. He squeezed my hand. This isn't a gift, Regina. It's restoration. Later that day, we met with Marcy Williams and Terry Blake to discuss the possibility. Terry thought it was a strong strategic move. Purchasing a home is exactly the type of beneficial use a trust like this is designed for, he explained. The court is likely to approve it, especially given the documented misuse of funds by the current trustees. Marcy agreed to file an emergency petition with the court for a special distribution from the trust to purchase the house. It will take a few days, she warned, and there's no guarantee the court will act quickly enough. Tell the sellers we're very interested but need a week to put together financing, I told Sarah when she called back. If they can give us that time, we can likely make a cash offer. She agreed to relay the message, and we held our breath. The next day, we received a response to my mother's text agreeing to meet at my parents' house that Sunday. I wasn't sure how it would go, but I felt stronger with my grandfather, Aunt Susan, and Terry Blake all planning to accompany me. As the meeting approached, I found myself strangely calm. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had solid ground under my feet and a clear path forward. That calm was tested when 2 days before our scheduled family meeting, I received a troubling call from my real estate agent friend Lucy. Regina, I just heard through the grapevine that your parents are listing their house for sale. Like today. Quick sale as is condition. I thought you should know. I thanked her and immediately called Terry. This changes things, he said after hearing the news. They're liquidating assets, which suggests they're either planning to use the money to repay you. Unlikely, I interjected. Or they're planning to move the money somewhere they think we can't reach it, possibly out of state. I remembered Amanda's gleeful announcement at a family dinner months ago about a friend who'd moved to Florida. The real estate there is so much more affordable, she'd said, and the weather is perfect year-round. I think they're planning to leave town, I told Terry. Move to Florida with Amanda. If that's true, we need to move quickly. Once they sell the house and leave the state recovering, funds becomes much more complicated. What can we do to stop them? We may need to escalate our timeline. I'll look into our options for an emergency injunction to prevent the sale of the house, given your grandfather's claim that trust funds were used to purchase it originally. I hung up feeling like the ground was shifting again. But this time, instead of helplessness, I felt resolve. If my parents and sister thought they could simply run away from the consequences of their actions, they were about to learn otherwise. It was time to turn the tables. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had a surreal quality, like stepping into a familiar dream where everything is slightly wrong. The dining room looked the same cherry table where we'd had countless family meals, the same floral centerpiece my mother always favored, the same china cabinet displaying my grandmother's wedding china. But nothing else was the same. Not them, not me. My parents greeted us with strained smiles. My father's eyes darted nervously between my grandfather and Terry Blake, whom I'd introduce simply as my friend Terry. Amanda slouched in her chair at the far end of the table, pointedly scrolling through her phone. Aunt Susan had brought a lasagna, a peace offering of sorts, though we all knew this meal was about anything but peace. "It's good to have the family together," my mother said, passing the salad with trembling hands. "We've missed you, Regina." I said nothing, serving myself a small portion of food I had no appetite for. So my father cleared his throat after several minutes of awkward silence. "We asked you here because we want to work this out, as a family, without lawyers and courts." He glanced meaningfully at Terry. "That's why we've come up with a proposal," my mother continued. "We know you're upset about the money, Regina, and we understand why. So we want to make it right." How I asked the first word I'd spoken since arriving. My father straightened, slipping into his negotiation posture. "We're selling the house." "We know that," I said. "Lucy told me you listed it yesterday." A flicker of annoyance crossed his face at being deprived of his reveal. "Yes, well, we've had a lot of interest already. We expect to close quickly. And when we do, we're prepared to give you $30,000 toward a new house fund." $30,000. Less than half of what they'd taken from my savings. Nothing for the identity theft, the destroyed credit, the trust funds that had been siphoned for years. "That's your idea of making it right?" I asked quietly. "It's what we can afford," my mother said defensively. "We have our own financial needs to consider." "Like your moving expenses to Florida?" I asked. They exchanged startled glances. "We're exploring options," my father said carefully. "Nothing's decided." "Bullshit," Amanda muttered, still not looking up from her phone. "Amanda," language my mother admonished automatically. "I know about the gambling," I said, deciding to lay all my cards on the table. "I know about the remortgaged house. I know about the trust and how you've been taking from it for years." The color drained from my father's face. "Who told you?" He caught himself shooting an accusatory glance at my grandfather. "I told her," Grandpa Jackson said evenly. "No more secrets, Walter. It's time for truth." "The truth," my father said, his voice hardening, "is that family helps family. Everything we've done has been to keep this family afloat, to give both our daughters the support they needed." "One daughter more than the other, it seems," Aunt Susan observed dryly. "Amanda has had challenges, Regina hasn't," my mother said, a defensive edge creeping into her voice. "Different children have different needs." "And what about the trust funds Regina never knew about?" my grandfather asked. "The distributions for education years after both girls finished college, the sale of the trust's interest in this house at below market value." My father's jaw tightened. "We've been transparent with the trust administration." "Transparent," I laughed without humor. "Is that why you never told me the trust existed? Why you diverted funds meant for both of us, primarily to Amanda? Why you're selling this house, which was purchased partly with trust funds, without court approval?" Amanda finally looked up from her phone. "Oh my God, enough with the money talk. This is so boring." "It's not boring to me," I said, turning to her. "It's my life. My future you all stole." "So dramatic," she rolled her eyes. "You act like we murdered someone. It's just money." "It's not just money," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "It's trust. It's respect. It's recognizing that I'm a person with my own needs and dreams, not just a resource for the rest of you to tap whenever Amanda has another crisis or Mom and Dad have another gambling binge." "Now just a minute," my father began, but I cut him off. "No, you've had years to talk. It's my turn now." I pulled a folder from my bag and laid it on the table. "I've documented everything. The unauthorized withdrawals from my savings account, the fraudulent credit cards opened in my name, the mismanagement of the trust. I've filed police reports for the identity theft. I've initiated proceedings with the court regarding the trust." My mother gasped. "You would send your own sister to jail, your own parents." "I don't want anyone to go to jail," I said honestly. "What I want is justice. I want what's mine restored to me. I want the fraud to stop. I want acknowledgement of the harm done." "And if we can't give you what you want?" my father asked, his lawyer voice firmly in place now. I looked him directly in the eyes. "Then tomorrow morning Terry, who by the way is one of the top financial fraud attorneys in Seattle, will file an emergency injunction to prevent the sale of this house. We'll proceed with criminal charges against Amanda for identity theft and against both of you for accessory after the fact and elder financial abuse. We'll pursue civil damages for the trust mismanagement, and all of this will become very, very public." The silence that followed was deafening. "You're bluffing," Amanda finally said. "You'd never do that to us." "I didn't want to do any of this," I replied. "You all forced my hand when you stole my house fund, destroyed my credit, and then tried to paint me as the villain for objecting." "We'll pay you back," my mother said desperately. "We said we would." 30,000 is insultingly inadequate, my grandfather interjected. "The audit shows over $350,000 that should have gone to Regina over the years, not including the recent theft of her savings." My father's face had gone from pale to red. "You exaggerate. And regardless, we don't have that kind of money to repay. The house sale will barely cover our debts." "The house that's partly owned by the trust," I reminded him. "The house that my name is still on as contingent owner, something Grandpa insisted on years ago, though you never told me." This was the bombshell that finally cracked my father's composure. "What are you talking about?" "When the house was purchased," my grandfather explained, "I insisted that both girls be listed as contingent owners since trust funds were used for the down payment. I wanted to ensure that if anything happened to you and Diane, the girls would have clear title." "That's impossible," my father sputtered. "I would have remembered." "Check the deed." Terry spoke for the first time. "Regina's name is there, which means she has legal standing to block any sale without her consent." My mother burst into tears. "This is a nightmare. You're tearing this family apart, Regina, all for money." "No," I said firmly. "You tore this family apart when you decided I mattered less than Amanda. When you stole from me instead of being honest about your financial problems. When you lied to Grandpa and used his love and generosity to fund your addiction." "We don't have an addiction," my father snapped. "We have had some financial setbacks, made some mistakes with recreational gambling." "Walter," Aunt Susan interrupted, "you need help, not more denial. Both of you do." Amanda stood abruptly. "This is bullshit. I'm not staying to be attacked." She stormed toward the door, pausing only to grab her purse. A designer bag that probably cost more than a month of my rent. "Amanda, wait," my mother called, but she was gone, the front door slamming behind her. The rest of the dinner deteriorated quickly. My father moved from denial to anger to desperate bargaining, offering increasingly larger portions of the house sale proceeds if I would just let this go. My mother alternated between tears and accusations about my heartlessness. Through it all, I remained steady, neither raising my voice nor backing down. When it became clear we were at an impasse, I stood to leave. "We're meeting with the family lawyer tomorrow at 10, I told them. "You're welcome to join us with your own attorney if you wish. We'll be discussing Grandpa's petition to remove you as trustees and presenting evidence of fund misappropriation." "And if we don't come?" my father asked. "Then we proceed without you, and the next communication you receive will be from the court." As we walked to our cars, my grandfather put his arm around my shoulders. "You did well in there. Kept your dignity despite their best efforts to make you lose it." "I learned from the best," I said, squeezing his hand. That night, as I was getting ready for bed in my grandfather's guest room, my phone pinged with a text message from an unknown number. "You think you're so smart. You have no idea what you're messing with. Back off or you'll regret it." I showed the message to my grandfather, who immediately called Terry. "It's almost certainly," Amanda Terry said. "Classic intimidation tactic. Save the message but don't respond. If you get any more explicit threats, we'll add harassment to the charges." The next morning, I woke early, unable to sleep from a mixture of anxiety and determination about the meeting with the family lawyer. As I made coffee in my grandfather's kitchen, my phone rang. It was Lucy. "Regina, someone broke into your apartment last night. The building manager just called me since I'm listed as your emergency contact." My blood ran cold. "Was anything taken?" "They're not sure. The place was ransacked. The manager said it looked like someone was searching for something specific." I knew immediately what, or who, was responsible. The financial documents I'd been gathering. The evidence against my parents and Amanda. They thought they could destroy the paper trail. What they didn't know was that I kept all the originals in a safety deposit box at the bank, with digital copies securely stored in encrypted cloud storage that Terry had helped me set up. The folders I'd shown at dinner contained copies, not originals. I called the police to report the break-in, then Terry to update him on this new development. "This actually helps our case," he said grimly. "Breaking and entering to destroy evidence shows consciousness of guilt, and it escalates this from a purely financial matter to something more serious. When we arrived at the family lawyer's office later that morning, I was surprised to see not only my parents waiting, but Amanda as well, along with a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Gerald Hoffman, their attorney. Before we begin, Gerald said my clients want to offer a settlement proposal. I glanced at Terry, who gave a slight nod. "We're listening," I said. $50,000, my father said. Cash. Today. In exchange for dropping all claims and investigations. I almost laughed. "No, 75,000, my father countered immediately. "This isn't a negotiation," I said. "I want what's rightfully mine, all of it, and I want guarantees it won't happen again." "Be reasonable," Gerald admonished. "Your parents don't have unlimited resources." "Then perhaps they shouldn't have taken mine," I replied evenly. The family lawyer, Mr. Daniels, who had known all of us for decades, looked uncomfortable as he spread papers across the conference table. "I've reviewed all the documentation provided by Miss Carter and Mr. Blake," he said formally. "I've also examined the trust records and the petition to remove Walter and Diane Carter as trustees. The evidence of mismanagement is substantial." My father's face darkened. "Et tu, Frank? We've been friends for 30 years. And as your friend, I've tried to warn you about this for years," Mr. Daniels replied. "But my professional responsibilities are clear. I cannot continue to represent the trust with this level of documented mismanagement." "What exactly are you suggesting?" Gerald asked. "That my clients agree to resign as trustees immediately," Mr. Daniels said. "That they provide a full accounting of all funds diverted from the trust and from Regina personally. That they cooperate fully with authorities regarding the identity theft. And that they agree to repayment terms for the misappropriated funds." "Impossible," Gerald scoffed. "They don't have the means to repay hundreds of thousands of dollars." "They have the house," my grandfather pointed out, "and the luxury car purchased with Regina's savings." Amanda made a strangled sound of protest. "You can't take my car." "It was never your car," I said. "It was purchased with stolen funds." The meeting continued for 3 tense hours, with proposals and counter-proposals flying back and forth. My parents and Amanda grew increasingly desperate as they realized the strength of our legal position and my unwillingness to settle for token repayment. By the end, no agreement had been reached. My parents and Amanda stormed out Gerald, trailing behind, promising to be in touch. "That went about as expected," Terry said, once they were gone. "Now we move to the next phase, which is filing the emergency injunction to block the house sale, and delivering evidence to the district attorney regarding the identity theft and financial fraud." "And the house on Maple Street?" I asked. "My house." My grandfather smiled. "I received a call from Marcy this morning. The court has agreed to an emergency hearing on the special distribution from your trust portion. We should know within 48 hours if we can proceed with the purchase." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of real hope that some justice might be possible. That I might reclaim not just my money, but my future. That night, as I helped my grandfather with dinner, my phone rang again. "Amanda." "Against my better judgment," I answered. "You've ruined everything," she said without preamble, her words slightly slurred. "Mom's had a complete breakdown. Dad's talking about disowning you. Are you happy now?" "I didn't want any of this, Amanda." "Bullshit. You've always been jealous of me. Always resented that Mom and Dad loved me more." The raw truth of her statement took my breath away. "Is that what you think? That they love you more?" "Of course they do. Why else would they have given me everything and expected you to just deal with it? They knew you could take care of yourself. You didn't need them like I did." There was a twisted logic to her reasoning that made my heart ache. "That's not love, Amanda. That's enabling. Real love includes boundaries and consequences." She laughed bitterly. "Save the therapy talk. Your little power play today changed nothing. We'll find a way around you just like we always have." "Not this time," I said quietly. "The truth is out now. There's no going back to the way things were." After she hung up, I sat at my grandfather's kitchen table, a strange sense of calm settling over me. Amanda was right about one thing: there was no going back. But perhaps finally there was a way forward. The emergency court hearing regarding the trust distribution was held on a rainy Tuesday morning in a small courtroom in downtown Seattle. I sat between my grandfather and Terry watching as Marcy Williams presented evidence of the trust mismanagement and the request for a special distribution to purchase the house on Maple Street. My parents and Amanda were noticeably absent, though Gerald Hoffman appeared to represent their interests. The trust was explicitly established to provide for the beneficiary's education and future security, Marcy explained to the judge. Purchasing a primary residence for Miss Carter is precisely the type of expenditure that aligns with the trust's purpose. Gerald argued that no distributions should be made until the dispute over trust management was fully resolved, but the judge wasn't persuaded. Based on the evidence presented, there appears to be a clear pattern of distributions favoring one beneficiary over the other, Judge Sorrento said. Equity suggests balancing this disparity. The court approves the special distribution for the house purchase. Outside the courtroom, I hugged my grandfather, tears of relief streaming down my face. "We did it," I whispered. "We actually did it." "You did it," he corrected gently. "You stood up for yourself when it would have been easier to give in." "What happens next?" I asked Terry. "Now we move quickly. We'll make the cash offer on the house today. Meanwhile, the injunction against your parents selling their house remains in place until the trust ownership issue is resolved. The district attorney is reviewing the identity theft evidence against Amanda, and the bank fraud division is investigating the credit card accounts." 3 days later, I stood in the empty living room of the Craftsman on Maple Street. My house, finally. Sunlight streamed through the leaded glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the hardwood floors that needed refinishing. The kitchen was outdated, the bathroom needed work, but none of that mattered. It was mine, purchased with funds that should have been mine all along. Lucy handed me the keys with a broad smile. "Congratulations, homeowner. Against all odds." "Thanks for not giving up on me," I said, squeezing her hand. "Are you kidding? This is the most satisfying sale of my career. Justice served with a side of perfect timing." As Lucy left, my phone rang. It was Terry. "Good news and complicated news," he said without preamble. "Which do you want first?" "Good news," I replied, sitting on the hardwood floor of my empty living room. "The bank has agreed to drop all fraudulent charges from your credit report. Your credit score should rebound within 60 to 90 days. And they're launching a full investigation into how the accounts were opened without proper verification." "That is good news. What's the complicated part?" "Your parents have made a settlement offer through Gerald. A real one this time." "I'm listening." "They'll resign as trustees immediately. They'll sign a notarized admission of misappropriating funds from both the trust and your personal accounts. They'll surrender Amanda's car to be sold to partially repay your savings account. And they'll agree to a structured repayment plan for the remaining balance secured by a lien against their house." "What do they want in return?" I asked, knowing there had to be a catch. "No criminal charges for any of them. And your agreement not to block the eventual sale of their house once the repayment terms are finalized." I took a deep breath, considering. "And Amanda, the identity theft. Civil penalties only. No criminal record." Part of me wanted them to face the full consequences of their actions, to experience the shame and legal repercussions of what they'd done. But another part, the part that remembered Sunday dinners when things were simpler, the part that still flinched at the thought of my mother in handcuffs or my father in a jail cell, hesitated. "What do you think?" I asked Terry. "Legally, it's a solid offer. You'd get financial restoration without the time and emotional toll of extended litigation. But this isn't just a legal decision, Regina. It's about what will help you move forward." I promised to think it over and called my grandfather next. "They've broken your trust repeatedly," he said after hearing the terms. "But people can change if they have proper motivation and support. The question is whether you can heal without seeing them formally punished." Aunt Susan was more direct. "Take the deal but verify everything. People like your parents and Amanda don't change overnight if ever. Protect yourself first." That evening, as I sat on the porch of my new house with takeout dinner and a legal pad weighing pros and cons, a car pulled up. Amanda stepped out, looking uncharacteristically subdued. "Can we talk?" she called from the sidewalk, not presuming to approach uninvited. I gestured to the porch steps, and she sat, maintaining distance between us. "Nice house," she said awkwardly. "It suits you." "Thanks. I guess you heard about the settlement offer." I did. She picked at a loose thread on her jeans. Not designer ones this time, I noticed. "I sold most of my clothes and bags. To start paying you back." I raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. "Don't look so shocked," she said, with a shadow of her old attitude. "I can take responsibility. Sometimes." "What changed?" She sighed heavily. Reality slapped me in the face. The car's being repossessed. Mom and Dad are in counseling for gambling addiction. I had to move back home and I'm starting therapy next week. Plus, seeing you actually stand up to all of us, it made me realize I've been a pretty terrible sister. Yes, you have, I agreed, not sugarcoating it. She winced but nodded. I deserve that. Look, I know I can't fix everything I've done, and maybe we'll never be close. But I am sorry. Really sorry. I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd come to expect, but all I saw was exhaustion and perhaps the beginning of genuine remorse. Are Mom and Dad really getting help? I asked. Yeah. Grandpa made it a condition of him helping with some of their immediate debts. Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times a week and financial counseling. I nodded slowly. And you? What are you doing besides therapy? I got a job. A real one with regular hours. Administrative assistant at a dental office. Not glamorous, but it's steady. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Why did you come here, Amanda? I finally asked. To ask you to accept the settlement. She rushed on before I could respond. Not for me. I know I deserve whatever comes my way. But Mom and Dad, they're not evil, Regina. They're weak and flawed and made terrible choices, but criminal charges would destroy them completely. I was surprised by her concern for our parents rather than herself. Maybe there was hope for her after all. I'll think about it, I said, neither committing nor refusing. After Amanda left, I called Terry and asked him to arrange a meeting with my parents, Amanda, and their attorney. I'll give them my decision in person, I said. The meeting was set for the following afternoon at Terry's office. My parents looked older than I remembered, subdued and nervous. Amanda sat straight-backed and solemn beside them. I've considered your settlement offer, I began without preamble. I'll accept it with 3 additional conditions. Gerald leaned forward. Which are, first, all 3 of you will write letters of apology, not just acknowledging the financial misconduct, but recognizing the breach of trust and emotional harm caused. Second, you'll continue therapy and addiction treatment for a minimum of 1 year with quarterly reports to the court. And third, I took a deep breath. You'll respect my boundaries going forward. No unannounced visits, no emotional manipulation, no attempts to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. My father started to object, but my mother touched his arm, silencing him. We accept, she said quietly. All of it. The paperwork was signed within the hour. Amanda's car would be sold. My parents would begin structured repayments, my credit would be restored, and most importantly, the cycle of financial abuse would end. As we prepared to leave, my mother approached hesitantly. Will we ever be a family again? She asked, her voice breaking. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just the mother who had betrayed me, but the woman who had once read me bedtime stories and bandaged my skinned knees. I don't know, I answered honestly. That depends on whether you can learn to see me as a person with my own needs and boundaries, not just a resource for the family. I'd like to try, she whispered. So would I, my father added, joining her. If you'll give us that chance. Time will tell, I said, neither promising reconciliation nor rejecting the possibility. Actions speak louder than words. 6 months later, I sat on the front porch of my fully renovated Craftsman sipping morning coffee just as I'd once dreamed. The hardwood floors gleamed with fresh polish. The kitchen boasted new countertops and appliances. The yard bloomed with the flowers my grandfather had helped me plant. Speaking of my grandfather, he called as I was contemplating a second cup. How's the guest house coming along, he asked. Almost finished. The contractors say 2 more weeks, but you know how that goes. After settling into my new home, I'd used some of the remaining trust funds to build a small guest house in the backyard. A comfortable 1-bedroom space where my grandfather would soon live. At 88, he was still remarkably independent, but we both liked the idea of being close while maintaining our privacy. Just in time for Thanksgiving, he noted. Have you thought more about inviting them? He asked carefully. By them, he meant my parents and Amanda. In the months since our settlement, they had actually followed through on their commitments. My parents attended therapy and GA meetings regularly. Amanda had kept her job and made consistent, if small, repayments toward my stolen funds. All 3 had maintained respectful distance, sending cards and occasional texts, but never pushing beyond the boundaries I'd established. I'm still thinking about it, I said, honestly. No pressure. It's your home, your choice. He paused. Have you heard from Mary Thompson again? Mary was a young woman I'd met through an online support group for victims of family financial abuse. After sharing my story at a group meeting, she'd reached out privately, recognizing eerily similar patterns in her own family. I'd been helping her navigate the early stages of setting boundaries and protecting her assets. We're meeting for coffee tomorrow. She's finally ready to talk to a lawyer about her situation. You're doing good work with that foundation idea, my grandfather said warmly. The foundation was still just a concept, a way to provide resources and support to others experiencing what I had gone through. But with each passing month, it took more concrete shape in my mind. One step at a time, I said. First, I need to finish healing myself. And I was healing. Slowly but surely. The nightmares about financial ruin had subsided. The constant anxiety about my future had eased. In its place was a growing sense of security and self-trust that no one could take from me. After hanging up, I took my coffee to the small home office I'd set up in what would have been a formal dining room. On the wall hung a framed quote I'd discovered during my darkest days. Family isn't who takes from you, it's who builds you up. And sometimes you have to lose what you thought was family to find what family truly means. I was building a new kind of family now. Not based on blood or obligation, but on mutual respect and genuine care. My grandfather and Aunt Susan, friends like Lucy, even my colleague from work who had helped me refinish the bathroom when contractors quoted astronomical prices. As for my parents and Amanda, the jury was still out. 6 months of good behavior couldn't erase years of betrayal, but it was a start. A small seedling of possibility that might, with proper tending and boundaries, someday grow into something resembling trust. For now, I had my house, my security, my peace of mind, and the knowledge that I was strong enough to stand up for myself when it mattered most. That was enough. That was everything. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who didn't respect your financial independence? What would you have done in Regina's situation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, subscribe for more content, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength in creating healthy boundaries in your own relationships.